chord, on its own, can be a beautiful thing. But it's where it goes next that can start to tell a story. And with each additional chord, it begins to reveal the song inside. Chord Sequencer, the latest player MIDI effect to arrive in the Reason rack, addresses the timeless question at the heart of every chord you've ever played. What comes next? What's the best chord to follow up the one happening right now? Choose your song's key and one of the dozens of chord sets loaded into Chord Sequencer, and you've got answers to that question. But not just one definitive, only correct answer. That's not how music works. Instead, Chord Sequencer lays out several choices across your MIDI keyboard, starting at C1 and ready for you to explore. With any chord selected in our set, we can see the safest, most sonically pleasing answers to the what comes next question showing up as the brightest chords on our display. Select one of these chords, and we have a whole new set of choices for where we could take this progression. We could stick to the safest and brightest green choices, or we could explore the chords one shade lower for options that are a little more unexpected. It's through this color coding system that you can explore chord progressions on your own, deciding if you want to make a classic choice, a slightly more progressive choice, a more unexpected but potentially interesting choice, or ones that take you in a whole new direction. The choices and the music you make with it is always up to you. If we load a different chord set, we get an entirely different set of chords to explore. And we can go about exploring them in the same way that we have already, and sequencing them in our sequencer. Or, if we want to stay more self-contained, we can drag chords down into the built-in sequencer, which, after all, gives Chord Sequencer its namesake. Like many sequencers, we can decide what note grid value we're working with. We can resize chords, replace chords, and even perform intuitive editing techniques, like clicking and dragging to move chords inside the sequencer, or holding down Option on a Mac or Alt on Windows to duplicate a chord. After we have a progression we like, we can further customize the performance by dialing in human variations to the velocity of each chord, and even the timing of when the notes in the chord occur for a slightly less perfect execution. And of course, there are settings to adjust the chords themselves, shifting the range of the chord progression entire octaves to move it around the keyboard, adding additional notes to the top or bottom of the chord, or removing the bass notes from a chord to free up that job for a bass line in your song. Chord Sequencer is, like all devices in the Reason rack, very capable on its own. But by combining rack devices, we can go even farther with our music. Players are, after all, modular. So here we have a nice EDM synth sound and a chord sequence happening. If we add another player like dual arpeggio underneath, our chord progression is instantly transformed. And thanks to the way Reason works, we can take Chord Sequencer even further, like using the root note CV out jack to trigger bass synths, editing any chord in a set for additional voices, even playing in our own chords if we like. And then there's all the stuff you can do with Chord Sequencer that you'll figure out and surprise even us.